Hello, everybody. What's going on? What's happening? This your girl Tiffany coming through live in effect. So I know it's been a few days since y'all heard from me because I just been working and I've been doing other things. So I haven't been having the time to do videos like I want to. But I'm here today. So today we're going to deal with the topic about Queen Nzinga. She was the queen of what is known today now as Angola. All right, she was a warrior at that. So if you want to go ahead and share this video, please do so. If you want to hit the notification bell, make sure you do that as well. And also, make sure you like the video, subscribe to it. So yeah, I want to go ahead and get on this topic about Queen Nzinga and her life, her legacy as a queen, as a warrior that she was. And we're going to go from there. All right. So allow me to go ahead and get started. So I have plenty of sources and information regarding to her. As a matter of fact, I have a book that I want to show you guys. So it's a heavy book. This book right here is called In the Praises of Black Women by Simone Schwartz-Bart. So actually, the author of this book, she's from France, so she speaks French. Okay, she's part African descendant, but she speaks French. So this book had to be translated into English. Okay, because the original language was French. Right, but the book is called In the Praises of Black Women by Simone Schwartz-Bart. Okay, Ancient African Queens. So she got several series pertaining to this book. Now, in this book, I'm going to read some of the information about Queen Nzinga, but let's look at her biography from everybody's favorite go-to website, and that's Wikipedia. It's everyone's favorite go-to website. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Hopefully y'all can see that screen. All right, so here's the story of Nzinga, Ndongo, and Matamba. Nzinga Mbande was queen, and she was born on 1583, and she died 1663. So it was said to be that she died on this day, December 17th of 1663. All right. So it says she was the queen of Mbundu kingdoms of Ndongo from 1624 to 1663, and Matamba, which is 1631 and 1663, located in present-day northern Angola. Born into the ruling family of Ndongo, Nzinga received military and political training as a child, and she demonstrated an aptitude for diffusing political crisis as an ambassador to the Portuguese Empire. She later assumed power over the kingdoms after the death of her father and brother, whom both served as kings. She ruled during a period of rapid growth in the African slave trade and encroachment of the Portuguese Empire into Southwest Africa. In attempts to control the slave trade, Nzinga fought for the independence and stature of her kingdoms against the Portuguese in a reign that lasted 37 years. So as you can see, she had her position in power for 37 years, fighting against the Portuguese to keep them from controlling those kingdoms. But let's continue. All right, it says in the years following her death, Nzinga has become a historical figure in Angola. She is remembered for her intelligence, her political diplomatic wisdom, and her brilliant military tactics. A major street in Luanda is named after her. In 2002, a statue of her in Lago do Kinasisi, Luanda, Angola, was dedicated by then President Santos to celebrate the 27th anniversary of independence. All right, so as you can see, it goes down to her early life. Say that she was, once again, said she was born in the royal family in Dango. Okay. Her father's name was Kilombo, and her mother was Kinjila Ka Inkombe, was one of her father's slaves' wives and his favorite concubine. Hold on, wait. Nzinga was born into the royal family of Ndango in Central West around 1583. She was the daughter of Angola Kilombo of Ndango. Her mother, Kingila Ka Inkombe, was one of her father's slave wives and his favorite concubine. Nzinga had two sisters, Mukambu, or Lady of Barbara, and Kifunji, or Lady Grace. She also had a brother, Mbandi Kilowanji, who took over the throne after their father died. And then it says, according to legend, the birth process had been very difficult for Kingila, the mother, and Nzinga received her name because the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. The Kimbandu bird, Kinjinga, means to twist and turn. It was said to be an indication that the person who had this characteristic would grow to become a powerful and proud person. All right, so pretty much, as we know so far, that her father was a king. Her father was a king, and her mother happened to be one of his slave wives and his favorite concubine. Yeah, that's what happened. So, if you know any stories about those kings during that time period, many of them had multiple wives. Then there were those who had wives and concubines. So that's how they did it. So Solomon wasn't the only one, even though we know that Solomon is not a real character in the Bible. But Solomon wasn't the only one who had wives and concubines. Okay. In real life, he had kings that did that. So they had relation with their slave or servants, and they had children with them. So it was a common practice. I'm not saying everybody did it, but it was certain ones that did it. So, all right. Let's go ahead and continue. It says, when she was 10 years old, her father became the king of Ndango. As a child, Nzinga was greatly favored by her father, since she was not considered an heir to the throne like her brothers. She was not seen as a direct competition, so the king could freely lavish attention upon her. She received military training and was trained as a warrior to fight alongside her father. She participated in many official governance duties alongside her father, including legal councils, war councils, and important rituals. Furthermore, Nzinga was taught by visiting Portuguese missionaries to read and write in Portuguese. Okay? So it says, during this period, the kingdom of Ndango was managing multiple crises, largely due to the conflict with the Portuguese. The Portuguese had first come to Ndingo in the late 15th century. They primarily focused on the port cities at first as part of the Atlantic slave trade. Okay? Hold on, give me a second. Okay. So, their consolidation of power in the region, however, in 1571, Sebastian of Portugal ordered the subjugation of Ndango. The Mbangala a group of young nomadic warriors already in conflict when Ndongo joined forces with the Portuguese. The Mbangala wanted to seize Ndongo land, and the Portuguese wanted to claim slaves out of the crisis. The situation was worsened because many Ndongo leaders joined the Portuguese side, which reduced the manpower and tributary funds available to the king. By the time that Nzinga's father became king in 1593, the area had been at war for over 10 years. The king tried a variety of methods to handle the crisis, including diplomacy, negotiation, and open warfare, but he was unable to improve the situation. All right, so I'm gonna start right there real quick. And I'm gonna read some information coming from this book about Queen Nzinga. Okay, so this chapter right here, it says Ana de Sousa Nzinga. I think that's Portuguese, which means Queen Nzinga, the queen who resisted the Portuguese conquest. Okay, so let me show y'all. Here you go, right here. All right, so it says in 1860, after having crossed Africa from one corner to another, from one ocean to another, the Scottish missionary explorer David Livingstone reached the old Portuguese stronghold of Ludana. Bare stairs, cell shackles, bolted and to stones testify to much of the recent history of Africa here. Then, as he reached a courtyard, he saw the imprint of a woman's foot engraved in stone. He was astonished. He asked the Portuguese, but they couldn't seem to answer. So an Angolan man stepped forward and declared that it was the imprint of the great Queen Nzinga, who had set foot in this courtyard 300 years ago. It says the man who had spoken was a simple Convor barrier. Suddenly, tears of emotion filled his eyes, and he added, "These stones are not the only ones to have remained faithful to her. In Angola, every living, breathing thing, down to the least blade of grass in your path, still remembers our great queen, Ana de Sousa Nzinga." Ana de Sousa Nzinga was born in 1581. Kabasa, the capital of the kingdom of Ndongo, a land ruled by leaders called Angolas. At this time, the Portuguese had already converted the whole kingdom of Congo and are advancing south towards the Silver Mountains and Kambande. But the greatest treasure in their minds is the very people of Angola, the kingdom of the Angola, which they consider to be an inexhaustible source of manpower of black ivory, as slaves were called then. All right, so that's part of the story. I'm gonna have to skip some of the pages here. So as y'all can see in this book, ooh, shit, hold on. Damn. All right, as y'all can see in the book right here, so there's some artworks right here to kind of like exemplify and give an idea. Okay. Hold on, let me see if I can pull this screen up real quick. Damn. This book is a very heavy ass book. I promise you that. But anyways, it says birth of Ana de Sousa Nzinga. Among the folk song that Ana Angola Nzinga, one tells the story of how when the prophet soothsayers, the Zingulas, bent over her cradle, they looked at each other mischievously, grumbling, "Ayaya, Mama Ayaya." The stars say that the little princess would not have an easygoing nature. So, if y'all understood that the Africans, they had a form of connection with nature. So they not only use spirituality as a way to interpret nature, if that makes sense. So they had a connection with nature through divinity and spiritual system. So that's why you got so many tribal traditions today that's still in practice, because one of the reasons why they dealt with science, but they dealt with science in a spiritual matter. They dealt with science in a more so what we call ethnoscience. Ethnoscience is dealing with culture. Okay, it's dealing with cultural practice. They had their own indigenous form of dealing with science, of nature. And so they use a form of divinity as a way to connect with nature. And that's how they did it. All right. So let's see what else. So it says Kibandu young women. The way women arrange their hair is remarkable. Some add calories to make it resemble a hat. Others tease, curl, or roll up their hair so as to make it look like a Roman helmet. The use of cowries to decorate the head is widespread among the women. White or red glass trinkets are also used, though less so amongst the people who live west of the Kwanzaa River. These extraordinary styles are set with a red balm made from recent powder and castor oil. This balm is especially common among people who produce a great quantity of castor oil. First, they pick the seeds and dry them out before grind them into a powder. This powder gives off oil once it has been boiled in water for several hours. After the water cools, the oil is extracted and preserved in small gourds. Excuse me. Proverbs, no matter how full the river, it wants to grow more. All right, so I'm not going to read anything else from this book. All right, so I'm just gonna stop here. But anyways, if you guys want to look it up, all you gotta do is put it up on Amazon, but you probably won't get it in the mail anytime soon because there's a lot of people ordering stuff. So you might can find it on the PDF or whatnot. So it's called In Praise of Black Women, Ancient African Queens, Simone Schwartz, Bart. Once again, here it is. As you can see it, there's the information. All right, so let me go back to the other sources. Okay. All right, so I got another source of information that I want to pull up. Wait, you know what? Hold on. Before I continue, before I do that, let me continue where I left off. All right, so name variation. It says Queen Nzinga Mbande is known by many different names, including both Kimbandu and Portuguese name, alternate spellings, and various honorifics. Common spellings found in Portuguese and English include Nzinga, and Nzinga with a J, and Nzinga with an H. In colonial documentation, including her own manuscript, her name was also spelled Zinga, Zinga, and Singa. She was also known by her Christian name, Ana de Sousa. This name, Ana de Sousa Nzinga, was given to her when she was baptized. She was named Anna after the Portuguese woman who acted as her godmother at the ceremony. She helped influence who Nzinga was in the future. Her Christian surname, de Sousa, came from the acting power of Angola, João Correia de Sousa. Now, as a monarch of Ndongo and Matamba, her native name was Angola Nzinga. Angola was the Ndongo name for the ruler and etymological root of Angola. In Portuguese, she was known as Raha Nzinga. According to the current Kimbandu orthography, her name is spelled Nzinga Mbandi. All right. So the statue of Nzinga, now standing in the square of Kinasisi in Luanda, calls her Mwane Nzinga Mbande. All right, then. So let's look at the embassy. So in her embassy in 1617, Angola, Mbandi was it Kulawanji died, and Angola Mbandi, his son, and Nzinga's brother came to power. All right. As the new king, Mbandi felt paranoid that one day Nzinga's only son, a baby, would plot to have him assassinated. So instead, he ordered her son killed. He then forcefully had Nzinga sterilized, which ensured that she would never have a child again. Perhaps fearing for her life, Nzinga fled to the kingdom of Matamba, where she stayed until her brother asked for her return to be his ambassador to the Portuguese in 1621. Her brother was failing to defeat the Portuguese and needed Nzinga to help negotiate a treaty. She was the best fit for the job. As she spoke fluent Portuguese, upset with the famine and terror that ravaged her home village, she agreed to meet to negotiate with Dom Jalo Correa de Sousa, the Portuguese governor, in 1622. Nzinga arrived in Luanda, while Ndongo leaders typically met the Portuguese in Western clothing. She chose to wear opulent traditional clothing of the Ndongo people in order to display their culture was not inferior. The story goes that when Nzinga arrived, there were chairs for the Portuguese individual and only a mat provided for her. This type of behavior from the Portuguese was common. It was their way of displaying a subordinated status and a status reserved for conquered Africans. Nzinga's soldier formed himself to be her chair while she spoke to the governor face to face. Nzinga was a fierce negotiator who made sure to flatter the Portuguese. According to the story, she was able to reach an agreement with the Portuguese, which entailed the withdrawal of Portuguese troops from Ndongo and recognition of its sovereignty. She was also able to ensure that the Ndongo did not need to pay tributes. She did this by successfully arguing that the kingdom was an independent one rather than a vassal or conquered state. In return, she agreed to open trade routes to the Portuguese as well as study Christianity and become baptized. Consequently, Nzinga was baptized in Luanda. She adopted the name Dona Ana de Sousa in honor of her godparents, Ana de Silvia, the governor's wife, and her godmother, and Governor de Sousa. She sometimes uses name in her correspondence or just Anna. Nzinga later called this period a happy time in her life, and she eventually left Luanda with the sense of a peace treaty completed. All right, so now we're gonna we're gonna skip some paragraphs here. Okay, so it says in 1624, her brother died of a mysterious cause. Some said suicide, others said poisoning. Before his death, he had made it clear that Nzinga would be his successor. An opulent funeral was arranged, and some of his remains were preserved in a mesette, a reliquary, so they could later be consulted by Nzinga. After the death of Angola Mbande, the Portuguese declared war on Ndongo as well as on other nearby tribes. All right. And then it says Nzinga used genealogy to support her claim to the throne of Ndongo against aristocratic rivals. However, neither Nzinga nor her predecessor brother had a direct right to the throne because they actually were children of slave wives, not the first wife. Nzinga strategically used the claims that she was properly descended from the main royal line because of her father, while her rivals were not at all. Her opponents, on the other hand, used the precedents to discredit her, such as that she was a female and thus ineligible. All right, so when it came down to female leadership, right? Now, there were some parts of the African culture that allow women to be the next in line to be the leader. But in Nzinga's culture, technically speaking, her and her brother both wasn't even supposed to be the reign of the kingdoms. I mean, they weren't supposed to be the kings, or they weren't supposed to be the rulers, period. Because they didn't come from a ruling class family on their maternal side. So although their father was kings, their dad was kings, but their mothers were slaves. And because their mother was slaves, they didn't have any form of entitlement. They didn't have no right to any status, like ruling class status. They couldn't be the next in line, but they end up doing it because of their father. So, and they was trying to use it against her because of the fact that she was a female. And by her being a female, it would make her ineligible to become a ruler of a country. So that's what they were trying to say. She was ineligible. She should not be a leader. She should not be a king, or a queen at that. She should not even have any type of control. She don't have any rights. But somehow she got away and she got around it. And so she took over the throne after her brother passed, because she was the next in line. All right. It says, now Nzinga was never able to give a credible reason for a woman to rule, and she was clearly aware that being female reduced her legitimacy in the eyes of even her supporters. As a result, Nzinga adopted a more radical method of overcoming the illegitimacy of her sex. At some point in the 1640s, Nzinga decided to become a man, which is actually a practice many female rulers in Central and Western Africa used to maintain their power. And Nzinga reinforced this maleness by engaging in masculine pursuits. She led her troops personally in battle, and she was deft in the use of arms herself. So, because she knew there was a lot of sexism going on regard to her being the ruler, she said, okay, well, I'll go ahead and disguise myself as a man. I'll go ahead and disguise myself. I would partake on the activity that most men do as far as warfare is concerned. So what she did, she disguised herself and she partake on a lot of activity, military activity, because her dad trained her. And see, that was a reason why her father trained her, because he knew that one day somebody gonna have to take over when he leaves. So he gave her military tactics. He trained her how to be more strategic, and she used that. He taught her and her brother both. So obviously her father knew that one day she was going to rule and she's going to have to take over. He knew that. So it made sense for him to teach her everything, because especially against the colonists, invaders. Sir, let me tell you something. Women lose their power by being masculine. Sir, let me tell you something. If you was listening, okay, at that time period, women could not be in a position of power. So she did what she had to do, whether you agree with the politics or not, okay? That's what she did. She disguised herself to be a man, because that was the only way she was going to be able to obtain power, because she lost her brother, all right? And she was the next in line. So since her brother had passed, somebody else had to take over, but they could not accept her being in a position of power because of the fact of her gender. So she had to play that masculine role. It's not to say that she wanted to be a man. It's not saying that she was trying to be a man. It was about trying to obtain the power. And that was the only way she was going to be able to obtain the power, is if she learned how to play the masculine role. All right? And not to mention, she didn't have children of her own, because the only son that she had, if you was listening, he was killed. He was killed by another ruler, because that ruler was afraid that he was going to do something that was going to end his life. So that's why they killed her son, and she ended up becoming sterilized, meaning that she's not able to have any more children. Okay, that's just how it was back at that time period. All right, there was a lot of sexism at that time when it came to females. It was very hard for females to obtain power. Now, in certain areas of Africa, you had women who was going to be next in line, who was going to be in power. But in her tribe, in her kingdom, that was not the case. The way things were set up, she was not supposed to be in a position of power, because she came from a slave mother, for one, and for two, she was a female. But there was no other men in her family. So she had to take over, and she did what she had to do. So, see, you're thinking from, okay, the way your psychology, right? The way you're thinking from a modern day perspective, which I understand. You're thinking from a modern day perspective. That's the problem. Okay? I don't feel that a woman has to pretend to be a man, nor that. You're thinking from a modern day perspective. You're not understanding. That's modern day. As of today, no, women shouldn't have to pretend to be a man. But if you was living in her time period, you will understand why she did that. Okay? Because they would not accept her as leadership as a woman. So she just couldn't come in there with just feminine attributes and thinking she was going to be in power. She had to be creative. She had to disguise herself. So what you're thinking today, you're thinking from a modern point of view. It would not be agreeable today, but at her time period, it was much different. So a lot of things that women could not do, they had to find creative ways to do it in order to be able to attain it. Okay? So that's just how things was. That's just how it was back then. All right, so let's continue. Anyways, let's go ahead and go down. So it says in 1644, Nzinga defeated the Portuguese army at the Angolame, but was unable to follow up. Then in 1646, she was defeated by the Portuguese at Cavanga, and in the process, her other sister was captured along with her archives, which revealed her alliance with Congo. These archives also showed that her captive sister had been in secret correspondence with Nzinga and had revealed coveted Portuguese plans to her. As a result of the woman's spying, the Portuguese reputedly drowned the sister in the Kwanzaa River. However, another account states that the sister managed to escape and ran away to what is now Namibia. All right, the Dutch in Luanda sent Nzinga reinforcements and their help. Nzinga routed a Portuguese army in 1647. Nzinga then laid siege to the Portuguese capital of Msangano. The Portuguese recaptured Luanda with a Brazilian-based assault led by Salvador Correa de Sá. And in 1648, Nzinga retreated a Matamba and continued to resist Portugal for the next 20 years. She implemented guerrilla warfare tactics and had begun to order trenches to be made around her islands, created hidden caves and stops upon, I mean, yeah, excuse me, let me try that again. Created hidden caves and stops up on supplies to prepare her people for a potential long-standing siege. She also made an unusual decree establishing her kingdom as a safe haven for runaway slaves seeking refuge from the European colonists. In those 30 years fighting against the Portuguese, she created false alliances with neighboring kingdoms, expanding her reign farther and farther even as she got older. All right, so it go down here to our final years. It says in 1656, after the meeting two of Carpathian missionaries, she converted again to Christianity. This conversion was noble, and she had opposed Christianity since 1627, but later tried to similarly convert her people. All right. And so it then goes on down to say that on November 24th, 1657, the Portuguese decided to give up their claims to Ndogo, and the land was returned to its traditional leader through a treaty ratified in Lisbon by King Pedro. After the wars with Portugal ended, she attempted to rebuild her nation, which had been seriously damaged by years of conflict and overfarming. She developed Matamba as a trading power by capitalizing on its strategic position as the gateway to the Central African interior. She was anxious that Nzinga Monas in Bangala would not succeed her as ruler of the combined kingdom of Ndongo and Matamba, and inserted language in the treaty that bound Portugal to assist her family to retain power. Lacking a son to succeed her, she tried to vest power in the Angola Kanani family and arranged for her sister to marry Jano Guterres Angola Kanani and to succeed her. This marriage, however, was not allowed as priests maintained that Jayo already had a wife in Mbaka. All right, so it then goes on to say she devoted her efforts to reselling former slaves and allowing women to bear children. Despite numerous efforts to dethrone her, especially by Kasanje, whose Mbangala band settled to her south, and the many attempts by the Portuguese to kill her, Nzinga died a peaceful death at the age of 82 on December 17, 1663 in Matamba. All right, so that's her life story. Ooh. And it says one legend records that Nzinga executed her lovers. She killed 50 to 60 men dressed as women, according to Dapper's description of Africa as her harem, and she had them fight to death for the privilege and duty of spending the night with her. In the morning, the winner was put to death. Successor. Nzinga's sister Baba ruled briefly until 1666 after she died. And then after the civil war that defeated Nzinga Mona's claim, she had two male successors, Jano Goretes Angola Kanani and his son Francisco. All right. So as of today, they remember her in Angola as the mother of Angola. She was known for her military tactics. Okay, and they have a street named after her in Luanda. All right, and so you want to find out more information, you can look down at the reference page right here at the bottom where it says citation. Right then it has the sources right here at the very bottom. Okay. Okay, and even Ivan Van Sertima wrote a book called Black Women in Antiquity. Okay, so this book was written in 1990. So you can check out Ivan Van Sertima book. All right. Okay, so anyways, There was a movie that came out in 2013 about the life of Nzinga. All right, so here's the movie right here. It's called Nzinga, the Queen of Angola. So it's written in Portuguese. Okay. But they have an English subtitle. This movie came out in 2013. Now, it wasn't in the main theaters. It wasn't on commercial or whatnot. So again, the movie, it has a Portuguese, people speaking the Portuguese language, but it has an English translation as well. So you can find the movie. Let's see where you can find this movie at if you want to watch it. Let me see. I believe you can find this movie on YouTube. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. Yep. Let me see. Check it out. YouTube. Give me a second. All right, so yeah, so there's the movie right there. You can rent this movie, and I can play a little preview of it. Just give me one moment.
Nos idos de 1581, no reino de Ndongo, Luans Guia Samba viu nascer a filha que deixaria o seu nome para sempre marcado na história. Gingambande. Desde bebê que o soberano, rei dos Mbundo, sabia tratar-se de uma criança especial. E Angola veria as suas melhores suspeitas confirmadas quando Ginga se transformou numa mulher diferente das outras. Filha extremosa, irmã dedicada e mãe orgulhosa como as demais, mas fiel representante do reino do Ndongo, estratega inteligente e guerreira destemida como poucas, sempre pronta para fazer frente aos portugueses ou a quem se atravessasse no caminho dos Mbundo.
Apontar! Disparar! Avançar!
All right, so let me read this comment real quick. I try not to address so many comments. Somebody put, you can get upset all you want to, but women are in the. Let me tell you something, partner. So there's some things you don't know about me. I'm not upset with you. Maybe you're misinterpreting that I am upset with you, but I'm not. Okay, let's get that straight. Because it's going to take a whole lot to get me upset. Believe that. But two, you just don't have an understanding of how things were done back then. Because again, and I'm going to say it again, you're thinking from a modern perspective. All right? So all this foolishness about me being upset, you can throw that out the window. You can throw that out the window because I don't know what you're trying to prove. I don't know what you're trying to prove. Because it ain't about me getting upset. It's about the fact that you're lacking understanding of how things were in ancient time period. Or, not even ancient time, but about 500 or 600 years ago. That's what you're lacking understanding of, because once again, you're seeing from a modern perspective. You're not understanding, okay, this is the reason why things taking place. You entitled to your disagreement. You entitled to your disagreement if you want to. That don't make a difference to me. Have your disagreements, okay? But just understand that there was a different time period, all right? And it's a different culture from what you're used to. See, you was born and raised in a Western culture, all right? So you only really know the Western culture. We was all born and raised in a Western culture. We was born and raised in America. So we don't understand other cultures like that until we start studying them, especially how they were in ancient time period. All right. So once you start to get into learning about the ancient period and how things were, then you will get a better understanding. But because you don't understand how they were doing things back then, of course you're going to think from that perspective of a Western mind. Of course you're going to think from a perspective of modern times because you have no understanding. And it's just simple as that. So ain't nobody upset with you. Ain't nobody upset with you, honey. Because you're not making me upset. I'm just laughing. But you just lacking understanding. That's all it is. Nothing more to it. You just lacking understanding. You just got to study ancient period from modern period and see how things were. Okay? So I hope that addressed your comments. I think you want me to be upset, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You're not going to make me upset. You're not. That's not going to happen. I will stop you at your track before that happens. Oh, boy. Yeah, but to piggyback off of that comment, like I said, yeah, when you study history, you have to study from a from an ancient point of view. Okay? Especially when you get into ancient history, you have to study how they did things and how their politics was. Their politics wasn't just like the politics that it is today. Okay? You have to understand culture differences, especially when you talk about cultures from other places as well. It's different. It's not the same. Okay? It's not the same. Everybody's culture ain't the same. Just because we practice things one way here in America doesn't mean that's how they're going to practice in Japan or in Costa Rica or in Switzerland or somewhere like that. There's going to always be cultural differences that you may not understand, that you may interpret as not normal. So, and then there's some things that we do here in America that not considered normal in other countries. There's some politics in America that's not agreeable with other countries. There's some social interaction that's not agreeable with other countries. And that's just how it is. So you just have that, you have to understand, you have to really study history, and you have to not just think from a modern perspective and just understand it from an ancient perspective. And that's that. That's that. Nah, it ain't about no sucker shit. Nah, it just, that person just lacked understanding. You know what I'm saying? They're just not understanding things because they're seeing it from a modern point of view. That's all it is. So I mean, they entitled to their comments. It wasn't like their comment was very offensive, but I think they was trying to take shots on the low key. But nah, that's not gonna happen. You're not gonna take those kind of shots with me. You know what I'm saying? You know, so some things people just need to understand that everything is not going to be seen based upon how you look at it. You might look at things one way, somebody else gonna look at things another way. You know what I'm saying? So it's not gonna always become agreeable, especially when you deal with ancient history, and that's just how it is. Child, listen. All right, but anyways, besides that, for those of you that's tuning in, thank you so much for coming through. Okay, thank you for coming through and watching this video and listening to the video and whatnot. So if you want to go ahead and share and subscribe to the channel, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay. And for those of you that's just coming through, you have to watch the video from the very beginning. All right. That's a fact. And also know this. Once again, if you make a comment and I see a comment, I'm going to address the comment. So it depends on what your comment is. I'm going to address your comment. So it ain't no stopping me. I have that right. So, you know, this is my platform. I have that right to address comments that I see. So if I get a chance to read your comments, I am going to address your comments. Simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Simple as that. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Please be safe. And until next time, y'all have a good one. And then I'll reconnect with you guys later. All right, but I got to get going because I got to get my day started. It's too much going on, yo. All right. But, all right, then y'all take it easy. Peace.